Hello viewers, for today's video we're taking a look at FGFS Super Speed Copilot, or FGFS Copilot Super Speed Edition, whatever you want to call it. So this time we're using a plane that will actually be super fast. And once again, it's an outdated model, so while it was very good back in like 2009 to maybe 2013-ish. There is a new model. I haven't actually managed to successfully download it for some reason. But yeah. This is not quite representative of what you could get in FlightGear. We're just looking at this for the purpose of the program I wrote a while back, but never I documented it on a wiki page, but never video documented it like I would have liked to. So we're continuing on with that. I'm going to double check and make sure I have my data entered in here correctly. We are indeed going for 2 on the left. Okay, alright, very good. So now I'm just going to hit my start button. I'm going to go into takeoff mode. I'm going to guide the plane down the runway. I'm going to fix that little visual glitch there. Just give it a minute. It just wants to make sure it's actually sure you want to take off. And here we go. Okay, so we're climbing out. I'm going to hit the activate button on the route manager. Wait a minute, I didn't hit the... Yeah, so it's just going to turn to 0 degrees. I don't want it to just do that. I want it to actually equalize my waypoint, which luckily is still a left turn from where I'm at. Now, unfortunately, this is the generic autopilot, so we are limited to a bank angle of 20 degrees. So, it's going to take a while to get around this turn. But here is the route manager information that you can see. And we have the remaining distance right here, along with the estimated time en route in seconds. So, a little over an hour, or something like that. It's probably, I've done this like a couple times trying to record this video. I expect, well, I'll wait a minute to give you that one, because you're going to be really surprised by how fast we go. I will say one more time, this is not exactly a realistic model. It feels good when you're flying it as it's intended to be flown within normal flight parameters. We are going to exceed those parameters in an unexpected way from the way the aircraft was developed. Okay, we're supersonic already, by the way, so yeah, that only took 3.5 minutes. And right, so normally I would have showed the code. I already did this when we flew the Beaver, but once again, we are constantly calculating top of descent using this handy little formula here, taking your altitude, subtracting that from the touchdown zone elevation of runway I'm going to land on, divide that by 1,000, multiply that whole thing by 3. And we're just going to climb at 400 knots indicated airspeed. And that's going to allow us to accelerate indefinitely, provided we can climb indefinitely. We're still heading northeast, and we want to be heading like west, northwest. So still have plenty more turning to do. But already our estimated time en route is below an hour. But you can see our distance remaining is actually increasing because we're still flying away from our destination. But that will change shortly. Alright, so I guess not much to see here at this point. I'm going to pause recording and get back to you in a little bit. Okay, it's been about another 3 minutes, and you'll notice that we are now up to Mach 1.9. We are about to hit Mach 2 any time now as we climb through 61,000 feet. You'll also notice that our estimated time en route has dropped. Oh, there's Mach 2. Estimated time en route has dropped by about 500 seconds, so almost 10 minutes. Alright, not a whole lot going on right now, so I'm going to pause recording once again and get back to you in a few more minutes. Okay, it's only been about another 2 more minutes, and we're already just about to hit Mach 3. You'll notice there's a lot less clouds below us now. I've changed some of the rendering options so we can get a little bit more. Oh, there's Mach 3, by the way. A little bit more of a scenic view. And we are now climbing through 82,000 feet. Okay, and our estimated time en route is now, wow, what is that, like 25 minutes? It was well over an hour at the start. Okay. Well, I'm going to pause the video recording once again, so I'll get back to you in a moment when things get interesting again. Okay, it's probably not even been a whole minute yet, and we're just about to hit Mach 4. Now you notice the plane's starting to oscillate, so the issue here is the F-16, 4.1 already. Okay, alright. And we're climbing, we're just about to hit 100,000 feet, so there's very low drag when you get up above 100,000 feet. I'm going to have to manually intervene a little bit here. So just bear with me a moment. Because otherwise it oscillates really, really dramatically. The standard generic autopilot just doesn't really handle this too well. So the low drag means the control surfaces respond kind of sluggishly even when fully deflected, or at high, even when you're, moving them at high rates of deflection. So, but we need to be able to continue climbing fairly consistently, and with the autopilot misbehaving like this, it makes it difficult. We're about to go hypersonic, by the way. If we can just keep this climb going a little bit, and there it is, Mach 5. And you'll notice the estimated time en route is just 10.5 minutes. Now, of course, if I really wanted to get the maximum potential out of this, I could probably retune some of the proportional gain, derivative, the PID values in the generic autopilot, but then I risk breaking functions for how it would handle with other planes. Which is why before, in like around 2013 or 2012 or around that time, I had written up a custom autopilot for this plane that could actually do this without these oscillations. But for some reason, I can't seem to get that right now with the way the new version of FlightGear uses a different file directory than before, and there's some kind of weirdness going on when I try to edit. Now remember that top of descent, so that calculation, it keeps running. At this point, we could just say about triple my altitude divided by 1,000. So 115, or let's just estimate 100. I'm over 100,000 feet. So we know 115, I expect top of descent maybe around 345 miles. We're at Mach 6.4, by the way. I'm not sure if I called Mach 6 or not. I probably did. But everything is just happening so fast because we got that super speed. Now, ideally, you don't want to descend at all. You want to continue climbing the whole way. And you can do that if the autopilot were to behave. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually command nose down a little bit, try and ease up on that drag a little bit, and that's not really going to plan. But we're still accelerating in Mach speed, which is what I want to see. Alright, so Mach 7. Okay, so now we are switching over to the descent phase. A little bit of a red out there. And you'll see the estimated time en route is below 5 minutes. But remember, we are at 120,000 feet with a descent rate of about 25,000 feet per minute. So, yes, if we were to maintain this descent rate, we would hit the ground in 5 minutes. However, oh look, our speed's actually increasing. Oh wait, this could actually be bad because we might hit VNE. But that's okay because I have speed brakes. So if things start to misbehave, I can just deploy speed brakes. But as you can see now, even though my indicated airspeed is increasing, my Mach speed is decreasing, which means my ground speed is also decreasing. So, this is still coming down, but it won't be much longer before we see that going up. Or maybe it will be a little bit before we see that going up. We're going to see it slow down and then go up. Let's see, I think, yeah, we're coming up to that speed that we don't really want to reach, where the autopilot will start to misbehave. So I'm going to get ready on the speed brake. Deploying speed brake, come on. I'm going to try and keep it at about 750. The key here is to look at the number and not look at the horizon at all. Make it more like 700. Okay, that's good, that's good. It's a little tricky because I have dynamic cockpit view, which looks into the turns and stuff, and So the autopilot's gonna have to try and adjust because with the speed brake there's more drag and it has to pull the nose up more to maintain the descent rate. There we go. So if you've looked away from the video, this shaking has now stopped. And you can see now, estimated time en route is just above 5 minutes. So we're going to be a little while here. And almost forgot, so I've turned off the orbital rendering so we can get that cloud cover once again. You can kind of see the hills or mountains or whatever poking through the clouds a little bit. Actually, you can't because my code is in the way. But you will eventually. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to get the nav radio set up. So, Localizer, ILS frequency 109.1. I'm going to leave it in standby. Now, the reason for this is I have no way to actually ident the frequency that I know of with this model. So, on testing prior to this video, I intercepted a station with the same frequency as the ILS, and well, it kind of ruined my flight. I was unable to complete the flight in a way that still used the automation, which is the whole point of this video, is to show off the automation. So I am going to wait until I'm within a certain distance to actually switch that frequency over from standby to active. Okay, it's probably been about another minute, and you'll notice we're just about to decelerate from our supersonic flight regime. So, yeah, there we go. So, Mach 1. The nice thing is we slow down slower than we accelerate, and 0.9. So we are now technically transonic, but yeah. 91 miles remaining, 10 minutes on the clock. And while we're here, might as well go through descent phase one more time in case you've not seen the flight with the beaver or you've forgotten. So, once again, we are calculating this VNAV down. That was the, for this number here, the vertical speed setting. So we're recalculating based on our current altitude and the target altitude, which is the touchdown zone elevation of the runway. And our distance to that point, which is that last distance, which we see also here. So, but it's grabbing it from here instead. So, then we have a contingency plan for if I were to have run out of fuel. So if I were out of gas, I would not be lowering the flaps and gear. So I only lower flaps and gear once I get down to within 20 knots of my landing approach speed, since my landing approach speed is 200. Then I'll lower, then FGFSCopilot will lower the flaps and gear. Alright, and our estimated time en route is now ticking down again. So it's still ticking down slower than normal time as we are still slowing down. One thing to also note is we have a descent speed mode, which is what we're in right now. So as our cruising speed, the speed that we were climbing at, is above 250 knots. That's the speed that we're set to target at right now. And again, contingencies in place for if we had run out of gas. So it would continue. Right, it would be here actually, where it would try to set a good glide speed by estimating what your glide speed should be, and then it adjusts it. It looks like it tries to adjust it. Looks like, yeah, okay. So 250 knots. Here we are. You can see this. The estimated time en route is now roughly ticking down normally, but even though we're at constant airspeed, our ground speed is going to be decreasing as we descend into denser air, and therefore have reduced true airspeed, Mach speed, and ground speed. Okay, so about 40 miles left to go, so that means we should be... Give me 1 second here. Yep, okay. No, I was thinking of a reference for regular FGFSCopilot. Never mind. Oh, no, here we are. Okay, so we've gone into we're still in descent phase, but we've gone into VREF speed mode. So landing approach speed. So now we're going to continue slowing down so that we can safely deploy the gear. With technically gear and flaps, but with the F-16, it's fly-by-wire controlled flaps. So FGFSCopilot can't actually do anything with the flaps on the F-16. And total flight time now is 31 minutes. So for reference, if I had done this in, say, like a commercial airliner, this flight would take about 2 hours. Not sure why we would be landing a commercial airliner at Air Force Base, but yeah. And you can see I didn't press any buttons except to change the camera. I was a little late changing the camera over, so I missed that. I wanted to say, hey, no hands, and then look at the gear shown flying. Oh well, it was a little slow, I missed it. Alright. So I'm going to pause recording here and come back when we're probably just about to intercept the approach, which would be in about 8 miles or so, I think. Now, I just wanted to comment on, having the gear deployed as early as they are. And the thing to keep in mind is this is supposed to be a universal tool, so deploying flaps and gear is dependent on being somewhere where I think, based on the flight parameters you punched in, you will probably be at about the max. A little, at a low enough speed to safely deploy flaps and gear without overspeeding either the flaps or gear. So it's not necessarily the most efficient, because if I tried to do that, then some planes probably wouldn't get their gear deployed until they were already trying to get established on glide slope and localizer or whatever, and that would be a disaster. Okay, so anyway, speaking of glide slope and localizer, we are in the ILS phase. Now, it already swapped over. That was weird. So it went straight to the ILS phase. I was expecting it to stay in the descent phase, but apparently the frequency that was in the active frequency was actually getting reception. So I had delayed swapping frequencies because I wanted to make sure I had at least reached my waypoint to intercept first, and I was hoping it would just turn towards the airport, because that's what it's supposed to do if the ILS, even the localizer, is not in range. Then it would just continue on using the route manager, as I'm sure you saw in the video with the beaver. Okay, so we are in ILS phase, and again we have contingencies in place for if we're out of gas, delay lowering flaps and gear. Excuse me. And the main thing here is we're looking to see, is the glide slope in range so that we can switch to glide slope hold. And then we are calculating another. We're still calculating that VNAV down to use here until we can get the glide slope. And then the last thing is setting the flare height for a 5-second flare. That would be a maximum 5-second flare. Yeah. I really hope we're going the right way. I'm going to cheat and bring up the map to check and make sure. Okay, looks like we are indeed turning on course. So don't worry that that's KLSV. That's the name of the first waypoint, and then we have KLSV to one left. So I'm a little concerned because the VNAV down is bringing me kind of low. I was looking at the approach plate, and from the angle I'm approaching at, I should not be descending below 6,500. Oh, here we go. We just intercepted the glide slope, which we were below like 4,200, which is actually the expected height to be at. So we're like 41 something 100 feet. So that actually wasn't too bad. I'm a little concerned because it looks like the runway is over here somewhere. That, not the one I went to grab. Can you please? There we go. So the runway is over here somewhere. So there we go. We're starting to intercept that course now. Can I get this right back centered? There we go. Alright, so again, it's a generic autopilot, so it's a bit slow to react, so hopefully it gets us straightened out here well before the runway. That's the whole reason why I went for a 20-mile approach. Right, we want the one on the left. 2-1 left, this runway right here. So the nice thing about tracking a localizer is it's emitted from the runway in a sort of a cone, or an ILS, I should say. It's sort of like a cone. So as you're further out, corrections are less precise. as you get closer in. So you're coming out like this, and as you get closer in, it gets tighter and tighter and tighter, until hopefully you're right on that center line. Please, crappy generic autopilot. I mean, the autopilot itself isn't crappy, it's just barely matched for this plane. But still, please work anyway. I don't like this. We have less than 500 feet to go. This is... I thought I could try and... You know what? We're going to leave it do its thing. It's going to be a horrible crash, but you get to see, you know... And we're into flare. We're going to land next to the runway. But look at how composed it is now. And we are kind of floating, aren't we? We are kind of floating. So normally I would go for a 4-second flare, and this is why. I'm going to deploy speed brakes. I'm going to deploy speed brakes because this is not good. So this is going to eventually force the plane to stall and then fall onto the ground. Because we just overflew the whole airport. Okay. The whole airbase. And that's just not good. So if I had like a longer approach or a better autopilot, if I had a better we're in the street. Oh well. And if you look off in the distance, you'll see Las Vegas. So yeah, there you go. But total flight time 2,400 seconds. So 40 minutes. So that's really good. That's like an hour faster than what it normally would have been without being in super speed, without going as fast as we did, without doing Mach 7. So yeah. So yes, we totally missed the runway. We totally missed the entire airbase because before I had this adjusted for 4 seconds, and then I was having problems with it not flaring at all, and I raised it by 1 second, and of course we got the full flare this time instead of like half of it or that. My main issue is something broke, and between the the version of FlightGear I had developed this for, and the latest update of FlightGear. Let me look in the code and see. I know I pointed it out before, but just in case anyone's forgotten, it's in the runnable. Yes, there we go. So we see this line of code that's commented out, and what that would actually do is it would pause the program for one FlightGear frame. But now, trying to get that frame latency, I get like a number format error, even though I'm supposed to be getting the correct variable type, and I'm not, it seems, or something's going wrong there. But yeah, so there is the super speed version of FGFSCopilot. Obviously, if you were going to use it for real, you would hit that end button to get your control back and land manually, if in the case of what happened with me. But we saw that if it had been lined up on the runway, if the timing of the flare was correct, it would have been a nice smooth landing. So yeah, that's going to do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll have one more video shortly when I find an old enough airliner that looks at least kind of nice, but is not quite so well developed to have an autopilot that isn't compatible with FGFSCopilot.